Did you hear that?
It shows being recorded.
I've never recorded before, so I don't know where it's going to put it. Danny will help me.
The upper corner up here.
How you doing, Dan? No volume. We can't hear you, Dan, even though you're not on mute. Right, Mike? It's not me. Did you see Dan move his mouth and no words came out?
Yeah.
Okay. You would test me to see if I could not hear you now. All right. So on the bottom of this button, there's a thing under where the mute button is. If you can hear me and you can't be heard, check to see that your settings, if you hit that up arrow, check for your settings to make sure you're using the system.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Great. Isn't technology great?
Yeah, especially at our age.
I know. I'm just kind of a slow learner.
Well, if you go from wearing a headset to not having the headset, you have to change the code, you have to change it up.
Okay.
So I would like to say that I'm officially too young to be on this call.
I know you are. You're just a babe in arms, aren't you?
But I had to set up the Zoom.
Yeah, well, you can stay with us.
It sounds like Dave's on there because we're getting the echo. From the board meeting.
I'm Ken Archer.
Oh, it's Ken.
Hi, Ken.
Yeah, I missed. You were explaining how to get the microphone on the computer to work, and at that time I was dialing in the phone, so I'm not sure if I can.
So Ken, on your bottom left, there's a microphone picture that says mute, but there's an up arrow next to it. If you click on that.
On my screen, it's on the upper right-hand corner.
Oh, so it's different. It gives you the options, and then you have to test which one's working.
I guess it depends if you're on an iPad or computer or phone.
Gosh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I don't see a microphone. Oh yeah, I see it says test speaker and microphone, which I've already done.
And did it work internally for you on the computer?
No, it didn't. It asked me if I heard an echo, and I didn't when I spoke.
All right, so what it wants you to do is check to see if you have a different setup. Like on my system, I can either use the computer microphone or I can use my headset. Do you have any, where it says select microphone, select speaker? I think we know you have a microphone because it's picking up us talking on your phone with the computer.
I just don't know, Daniel.
Okay.
I don't know. Sorry, this is annoying.
Here's my thought is put the phone on mute for a second.
Okay.
Can't tell that it's on mute, but it's not giving us the echo. But you can still hear us, but we can't hear you, right, Ken? All right, go back to the phone.
That's right.
I think we're gonna have to go with you on the phone and terminate the computer hookup, or else we're gonna keep having that echo.
What about now?
Actually, that works. Right?
Okay. I left computer audio.
Perfect. So you can still see us, but you don't have to have a. Now, nobody has an adult beverage, so I can't go make an adult beverage.
I have one.
All right, thank you, Ken. I can go make one now. I have an empty glass. So with the headset, I'm not even tethered. I can do stuff. I just heard that the vice president of the board is not joining us, so Rich is not going to make it. Who's coming in? David is. There you go. As long as the president's here. David, can you hear us? I have to say, anybody that sits through the board meetings know David takes a couple minutes to get the computers going.
I see Vic. Hi, Vic.
Vic made it.
Hello,
Can you
Vic.
hear me?
I can hear you.
Leave it,
Good.
Charlie.
This was my first time with a microphone.
All right. How are you doing this evening?
Good.
Great.
Host disabled, just the screen screen. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
I can.
This is David. You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good.
That was record time, David.
Mine's disabled participant screen sharing. Is that
Oh, hold on. You want me to? You need me to share the screen? You ask, I will deliver. Let's go to multiple participants can share simultaneously. Try
Nice
that.
red shirt.
I
like
just
it.
changed.
Hey, I just put on my red, but I don't have the Seattle.
Oh, the ship store is open.
Who is this? I'm Tom Huber.
Tom, I'm Dan Justinsky, the treasurer, and
Okay.
I have already announced that I'm too young to be on this call.
You are.
I served. I got there in 1988. So commissioned in '87 under Ronald Reagan. So we're a little.
Oh, 69 for me, buddy.
But the board asked me to use my connections on the Zoom so that we didn't get bumped off or anything. So I'm only here as a guest. I am not.
You're the techie guy.
No, that's other people. But who was trying to share a screen?
Me.
Did you get permission to? Did
No.
it work?
Yeah, I see it. Do you see it?
So I see your background picture. That's different from sharing your screen.
Oh, okay. I did not try to share a screen. I
Okay.
background.
If you were trying to share a screen and I did this, see how everybody sees my appointment.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll stop sharing. That's the difference. If you had video to share, you can now share that. If you want to change your background, that's different. Under the video, you can change your background. If I choose my virtual background to be, you have to name the city. The ship never went there. That was Florence. We never went to Rome either. But let me get that off of there. So Dave, are you back? Captain Craig Honor's in. I can see him now.
Yep. Hi, Craig.
On Vic, how's it going, Dan, Tom, and Mike?
I was just gonna.
I also have a little problem with my audio and video, which I solved, but it's done.
Well, Florida's getting the uptick in COVID, so I'm sure you're staying safe in the basement.
Not really. I take golf every day. What happened was we opened up all the bars and all the young folks went to play in the bars, and so they're all getting COVID. And most of them are pretty healthy and don't need hospitalization. So while our total number of COVIDs is skyrocketing, the death rate's still relatively low, and the number of hospitalizations are about average. And the beaches are open and the golf courses are open, so hey, life's good.
It is. We're hoping that the president is back on now. We can see his name, but
Yeah, I'm gonna mute for a while.
all right. David, Earth to David.
Here.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me? This is David.
It sounds like that scientist sometimes that passed away. You're sounding electronic, David.
Can you hear me now? You're
Yes.
muted. Press A. Can you hear me now?
You want to take it away? There's Mike. Mike Richard tried a couple of times at 5 o'clock to come in and see us.
Hey, Mike Richard, buddy. Personnelman, second class.
Ah. I had a PNC Arroyo in my crew. It's a shame if I can't. There were between the personnel and yeomen. I remember Chief Thomas and Chief Arroyo, but I can't remember all my crew. And I'd have to get the cruise book out to figure out everybody's name.
Mike and I were in division together.
They try to make it hard. If you're a navigator and administration, you have to go from the bridge to the fantail, 4 times a day to get the plan of the day ready for the captain, right? Actually, the XO was the one that beat me up over that. What do you got?
This is Dave. I keep getting that message. My bandwidth is too low. Keeps knocking out. I have to come back in again, but I'll stay here as long as I can here.
If you have a cell phone, David, it might be easier for you with the signal strength to not try to do the video.
Yeah.
Go to the picture. So if you go to stop video, you can talk.
Stop video. Gotcha.
Mike Richard there?
I see your picture, Dave. Can you hear me or see me?
We can hear you.
Hear me?
Yeah. So we have 4, 8, 12, 13 blocks on my screen. Oh, so there's David coming back. Craig, you came back in with new initials. No, you didn't. That's below you. Sorry. It's somebody right below you on my screen, Craig. So on the email attachment, David, if you try the phone number and just disconnect from the computer, you might not have bandwidth for this.
You got a bunch of old guys on here.
So last month we were talking to the board meeting, and David and Rich were saying if we're not going to have a reunion, we should try to get together and have a chance for sailors from different times to talk about stuff. And all I said is I'd set up the meeting, and now David can't get in. Something came up and Rich had to bounce out. I should defer to Vic and make him do Vic has many more years experience than I do of this.
I muted my mic, so I wasn't bothering you. You're doing a fine job.
And actually, Vic is part of the target audience too, as you and I are not, Dan.
We are much too young, Craig. Yes, sir. Well, hopefully David figured out the phone number thing. So on my screen, you got Mike on the iPad. Mike, which division were you in?
I was in 3rd division,
All right.
71 to 73.
So your target audience, Danny. Let's
That's
see
Mike. Mike.
Which Mike is it? Is the question?
Yeah, give your full name.
Mike Theory.
There. And where are you calling in from?
Around Peoria, Illinois.
All right, very good. If you were already not here when I got here, Dan Jasinski, I'm the treasurer, and I had a free Zoom account to set this up so we can get these calls going. And I'm tap dancing while Dave figures out his technical.
This is Dave Holton. Can you hear me?
Lima Charlie.
Okay, 10-4. I'm connected.
You're allowed to say Wilco today.
Okay. Wilco's a gas station. I forgot the rest of it. But
Wilco means
I'm David Holden.
bye, but don't ever say Wilco, Roger, over and out.
Exactly. You can convince a junior officer to do it, then it's funny.
Well, this is David Holton, and I'm the president of the organization. And do we have any other officers on the call? Board members or officers?
I'm here, Danny Abner.
All right. And let's see, I was on from 69 to 72. Danny, when were you on?
I was 69, 70.
Okay. Any other officers or board members on board here tonight?
Vic Helberg is here. I was on from 68 until 71.
Great. Great. So now, before I'd logged off, I saw Tom Huber was on there. Tom, when were you on?
Tom Huber, 69 through 71, postal clerk, plank owner, of course, and yeah. So good to see you. Good to hear you guys. I see some of you. I'm doing it on a smartphone, so I only have one screen or two screens.
And who else is joining us? Shout out your name and tell us when you were on board.
So you want me to help with, this is Dan. The next person on my screen after Tom was Mike Richard. Mike, can you hear us? Or is that just Mike's picture? Is he tricking me? Mike's not moving.
Last time I knew, he was out there in Washington. So.
Mike Richards.
Yeah, I think Mike got frozen. So Mike, if you can hear us, you might need to reset in.
Or mute button, maybe a mute button on.
No, it's locked.
Okay.
There. So next on my screen was Craig Honor, and we'd already said hi, and we already realized Craig and I are too young to be on the call. Benny is next on the list. You're up.
Who, me?
Benny Scott,
Oh,
you can hear me?
I can hear you, Lima Charlie, and you look like you're in the backyard.
Yeah, I am. It hasn't got dark here yet. So I was on the ship from 74 to 77. I was in E Division and Race Division. I was an electrician.
Excellent. Well, welcome aboard for the call tonight. Ken Archer. I can see the name, but I can't hear anything.
Now can you hear me?
I can. So you have a name and a phone number. That's pretty good, Ken.
Yeah, I don't know how it happened. Well, I was on board from 72 to 76. I was an ice seaman, so electric division.
Great.
Very good. I see one more phone number, 704 number.
698-5948.
Is that you, Dave?
That's me.
Oh, okay. And 120 or 1206.
I don't know what that is.
See if that one pops in. There you go. Who's that? That's somebody spying on us. In case we.
It's the Russians.
All right, Dave, take it away.
Okay, well, for those of you who have been to our reunion, we've had a number of them going back. I guess we've had 14 or so, 13, 14 reunions. And one of the highlights has been when we get together and we just share some stories that we had that we remember. And sometimes we get going and we'll say, well, you know, I never really knew the end of that because it happened in this part of the ship, but I heard about it. And oftentimes somebody will say, well, I was in that part of the ship and here's the end of that story type of thing. So we thought, well, in order to just build a community and with all this covert virus, you know, the virus and everything, we thought, well, maybe we ought to try a Zoom meeting, see if we can reach out to some fellow Seattle guys. And this is our first attempt. As you can see, we're still struggling with getting everything organized, but our attempt is to do every 10 years from now, you know, over the next couple of months and reach out to folks and say, hey, if you were in this group of folks, come listen and participate and tell a remembrance if you have and to share with us stories with some folks. And we invited everybody to come, but we wanted particularly the people who from this group, this 10 years, to actually be the speaker, people who spoke. So that's just an open forum to kind of share a little bit about some stories. Some was funny. Some maybe it was a rough situation while you were underway, involving weather or, you know, unwrapping collisions and things of that nature. We've had a little bit of everything shared in the past, and even some personal stories about some people who were pulling pranks on each other and stuff like that. So we just opened the floor and especially the guys that are new, other than the officers and others. If one of you, I know the first person to go is always the hesitant one, but if there's one of you guys would like to step up and just say, hey, here's what I remember about the ship and a story I have to share with the folks. And we are recording these because what we'd like to do at some point is put these all together and to be able to post it on our website so guys can go in there and at their leisure, you know, hear these stories by the different decades and that type of thing when as we just build the website and that type of thing. And then towards the end, I would like to tell you a little bit more about our association and things we're doing, and then I encourage you to be a part of it. But for right now, I just open the floor. Is there anyone who wants to step up, be the guinea pig? If not, I can start one that we've talked before. Some of the folks have been around, but I was, like I said, I was on the Seattle from 69 and the Navy from 69 to 71. I was on board the 72, late 72. And, but I was on the Seattle actually from 71 to 72. But went there as a personnelman. But I never got to do personnel work because the first day I was reported aboard the ship, we were getting ready to go out to the med for the second med cruise of the ship, and came in with my sea bag, and the chief was happy to see because he had lost a lot of guys who were transferring out, and I was transferring in. So, you know, here's your desk, sit down and start processing guys in here. And so I sat down, and as soon as I sat down, the phone rang, and it was the captain, and well, I didn't know the phone rang, and the chief said, answer the phone, and I did. And he said, "It's the captain," and he said, how many college graduates have shown up on the ship since we got back in the last month? And I said, I don't know, sir. So I said, Chief, it's the captain. He wants to know how many college graduates have reported aboard. And you know, he had some salty language, you know, he used, and basically said, I don't have time to answer that question, and telling none. And I said, well, sir, there's one. He said, I said, I am. He said, well, then tell him there's one. So I said, Captain, there's one. And he said, who is it? And I said, it's me. He said, well, what did you do when in civilian life after college or during college? I said, well, I was a business major, and then I worked public relations for United Fund until I got called to active duty. He said, stand by, I'll be right there. Hung up the phone. Chief left the room, and the captain came down and walked in, and there was attention on deck. Now everybody asked me, what's going on here, and where's Holton? I said, it's right here. He said, man, he said, you just did get here, didn't you? I said, yes, sir. Here's my seat back. I've been on the ship 10 minutes, you know. He said, well, follow me. So off he goes, and this is Captain Townsend. We go down 4 or 5 decks, and ended up in his room, and this room's bigger than the ship's office with like 10 guys in it. And he said, I want you to be the crew. I want you to do the cruise book for the ship. I said, okay. And he said, and this is your office. And I had a desk and a chair and a file cabinet in this big room. It's supposed to have been a dentist office, but they decided last minute not to put the dental office in there. So this thing was vacant. It was right down there where the ship store was. And so he left. And then I heard the voice coming, Seaman Holton, get up to ship's office. And I didn't remember how to get back. I was asking, how do I get back there? And I got back there, and the chief was mad, and what the captain said. And he called the captain. The captain said, "That's, you figure it out. I'm going to use him for that. And if you want him in the office, that's fine. But otherwise, that's his job." And so the chief just looked at me and said, "You can get out of here. You're gone." So I didn't have anywhere to live or anything, and no bunk or anything. And well, I got settled, but the bottom line is that led me to end up being the captain's phone talker on the bridge, which was fun. And this one time we were up on the bridge, and the Russians had come up behind us and decided that they've been tracking us for a while, and they wanted to come alongside for refueling. And of course, they couldn't do that. The Russians at that time, maybe it still is, but at that time they had to come dead in the water and bow to stern and pass the hoses across. And they were back there in a ready position. So we had broken everything down, and the signalman called down to the bridge and said, the Russians flashed the signal, so they want to come alongside for replenishment. So the captain said, well, let's have some fun here. So he called away the starboard and the port shot line detail. And he told the starboard side, stand up and get ready to shoot, and told the port side, duck down behind the bulkhead, but be loaded. And so we got everybody in the station and said, tell the signalman, bring the ship alongside. So the ship comes up like, they watched everybody else do. And as soon as they did, Captain ordered to shoot the shot lines. They shot the shot lines over, and they all landed on the deck, and no one knew what to do, or the Russians. So the captain was over there yelling, throw it back, throw it in the water. As soon as they threw it in the water, he said, port, stand up, fire your rug. And so we fired some more over there. And finally, they were throwing those over, and the Russian ship just peeled off to the right. I mean, black smoke came out. They just put everything they had. They just peeled off, and everybody was yelling and screaming and hollering, and giving them the Hawaiian salute and everything through the whole process. But it was just part of some of the games that went on with the Russians while we were out there, and that time, in that period, they followed us pretty much everywhere we went and tried to intercept our stuff and things like that. Probably never changed after that. I don't know.
So can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, this is Mike Richer. I was on the ship from 69 and 70. And so I took the first cruise. Yeah. And it's kind of odd here. I was a personnelman. Became a PI2 on the ship. And also I was the captain's phone talker.
How about that?
so I guess you replaced me because I left, when Captain Townsend came aboard.
Right.
So I guess
I came right in behind you. Exactly.
You came in. You were the number 2, the second captain's phone talker, and then, as I remember it, that was a big, busy job, and I was up there. All hours of the day and night.
Yeah.
It was a busy job, and trying to keep track of everybody on the line.
We've got more in common than you think, because I was a captain's talkie.
Yeah, I don't know how that went past that. Well, I know we had they had to undo the headsets and screw them into different, screw them into different sockets there to even talk to different parts of the ship. I assume later you could do it faster than what we had to do.
Yeah. I don't remember doing too much of that. I just following the captain around. Sometimes we were out in replacement. We were out on the side deck, and then other operations. Sometimes we were in the bridge, and I was passing on what the navigator was saying, so on. The other, we were talking about a replacement story with the Russians. So we were replenishing at every carrier we were with, and this Russian cruiser was coming in with our team of intersected us. So we had to do an emergency breakaway, and there were some cables flying around. I know one of the bosun's mate saved one of the seamen by tackling him. So it was pretty exciting. We managed not to any collisions with Russians.
Benny, do you have you want to share something?
To me,
Yeah, Benny, you guys.
I had a pretty boring life. I spent most of my days in the laundry. I actually started out in 3rd Division, and then shortly after they had the fire in the laundry, they transferred about 6 or 8 of us to the supply division, and I ended up in the laundry working 2nd shift. Basically just like a job. I didn't have to stand watch or anything like that, which was a nice thing. Get up and go do laundry for 6 or 8 hours. So I guess the one thing that I remember the most about my time, and then you guys that are plank owners will remember this distinctly, is the day that I think his name was Seaman North, decided to jump off the ship in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You
And,
remember.
I remember that.
And we found, I do remember that. We went back and found him, which was unbelievable.
It was unbelievable, is correct. That's the one thing that stands out in my mind, that they called all hands on deck, and we left the laundry, came up on the deck, and everybody had their binoculars that owned binoculars out there on the deck, and it was raining a little bit, as I recall, and we were trying to find this idiot in the Gulf of Mexico, and actually found him. The Captain Keener ordered the ship to be turned around, and we did a zigzag course back on the route we had just taken out of the mouth of the Mississippi into the Gulf. And I guess we cruised for maybe, I don't know, 20 or 30 minutes, maybe longer. And
I think it was about an hour.
Somebody spotted,
I think it was over an hour.
and they dropped over the lifeboat and went and got him.
It would have been a long swim.
He was absolute dot in the ocean.
Yeah.
How he ever got found, I don't know.
I don't know how they found him. I mean, it was a bad.
I can tell you that. Chief Hebert.
Is that how you found? Yeah.
Radar Chief Hebert.
Okay, he found him.
I was in operations of radarman.
Uh-huh.
And remember when they did the probably 3 different calls for mustering?
Right. Yeah.
And after the second one, the captain came in to CIC and said, we need to be thinking about plotting a course to where this guy might have jumped over. That they had determined that he had jumped over because they found his boondockers.
Yeah, they found his found his ID card in his shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Hebert said, I need to have a navigator in here. So he came in with a chart for that area, and he said, tell me what the wind speed was. And he put it into a calculation. He says, tell me what the currents are right here, and which way they're going and the speed. We had a thing called the DRT, and we had this compass rose that you could swing around and draw lines with angles and stuff like that. And he puts it down there. He throws his pin. That's where he is.
Huh.
The captain went out on the bridge, said, and he had told him what speed and what angle or what heading to go. And he went on the bridge and told it. And that's when we made this very fast. I don't know if you remember the fast turn. The ship's kind of shaking and everybody's listening to one side.
Yeah.
And we picked up speed. And they had I can't remember what the guy was. He was like a baker or something like that. He baked biscuits or something at night. And he was on the wrong side of the ship looking for the guy.
I think Vic's got it.
Yeah.
I have that story.
Take it away.
They had called for us to be on the starboard side. They said as many people as possible on the starboard side, everybody's watching. And I was working, I was a cook. In my third class, I was a second class, and my third class cook and I we went out on the port side to have a cigarette. And there were so many people on the other side, our eyes were not needed. And we were standing there, and the third class was Dan Daly. And he and I were having a cigarette out there and just looking out in the distance. And Dan said, "Look at that." And he pointed out ahead, and we looked out together, and he said, "Does that look like him?" And you were right about the seas being difficult. We were going up and down, and the water would go high and low and high, and we'd see this body raise up and raise down. And so he said, "I think that's him. I'll keep my eye on him." And I ran to the back fantail, which was not far away from us, and I hollered up above to the deck where the sound powered guy was, and I said, "We think we see him on the port side here." And he put that information up to the bridge. And I'll tell you, I did not know our ship could turn that fast.
Yeah.
We tipped so far and made that turn, and in no time at all, they were lowering a little boat to go out and pick him up.
Right.
Where's Miller?
Very nautical, Vic. A little boat. That was really nice.
You got to know it's been a long time since I was there.
I think he was the first one off in Norfolk.
Actually, that guy bunked in my department, I think,
Jeez.
and they came and cleaned out his locker and took all of his stuff out of there, and we never saw him. And I think they kept him in sick bay until we got to Norfolk, and he was gone. He was out of there, as I recall.
We had a jumper on the third Met cruise.
Wow.
Oh, really?
On the third Met cruise, there was a jumper.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Guy
So
from-
what was this? This was in the Mediterranean someplace?
I don't remember if it was in the Mediterranean or coming back.
Okay.
Did you find him?
You found
Yeah,
him?
he was on the deck division.
Yeah.
Was he recovered?
That may be
Yeah, he was
that may
recovered,
be the
yeah.
one. Yeah, that may be the one.
They saw him jump.
His name wasn't Joe Biden, was it?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one that would go back to being a captain's phone talker. When they did the man overboard, that was one of my duties. This is David Holton again. I went ran up there and got up there for the captain, and like you said, the guy had gotten a Dear John letter, and if this is the same deal, so it would have been in 71, I guess, 71, 72, and he just decided he had the Dear John letter sent him up, so he just jumped off. Everybody watched him jump in, and they reported it. And what we did is we launched the helicopters to drop some life vests and try to pick him up. At the seas, it was kind of in the winter time. Or fall. It was kind of cold and it was overcast. And they got the helicopters up and over him, and they radioed the bridge, and they told him, tell the captain, I can't get the chain down low enough for him to grab hold and so we can pull him up, because the chopper blades are kept picking up the waves so much, we're going to drown him. So we dropped the floating devices. We'll hang over top of him so you know where he is, but we can't get him up by the helo. So we turned the ship around and we got it down there. And when we stopped, and he was off to the side, he's probably maybe 50 yards off the ship, and the captain came down and did the same thing. He said, "I need a bosun. I need to launch a boat over there, a life raft to go get him." And bosun said, "It's really tough, getting that down there." I said, "I'm going to ask for a volunteer." He said, "Well, ask for a volunteer. I don't care because I'm not going to order somebody to do it." So they asked for volunteers. They had more of the volunteers they could handle. So they lowered the boat down. It probably took, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes to get the boat down into the water because we kept splashing up against the side of the boat and everything. So they got it in there, and they took off and they got him and pulled him up, and they brought him back and they got him up the ladder, got up to stop. And of course the medic was the doc was there, and also the chaplain Smith was his name, and of course he came up, and the guy was, he looked like his face was just ashen. He looked like he was half dead and shivering, and they got him in blankets and everything. And Townsend said, "Come to captain's mast." And the doc said, I'm sorry, the Chaplain Smith said, "Captain," he said, "we need to get this man to sick bay." He said, he's not looking good. He can go to sick bay after I'm finished with him. He's coming to captain's mast. And he turned to the doc and he said, "Doc, I need your help." And the doc said, "Captain," he said, I think he needs to come to sick bay. As soon as he's finished in sick bay, I'll send him straight to captain's mast." He said, "All right, go ahead and do it." And they took him there. They got him up there, and they put him in the captain's mast and put him down the brig, and busted him and did a bunch of other things to him. Then he was going to do some time when he got to Norfolk. But in the meantime, it was kind of interesting because the captain, Townsend, who was a ace pilot in Vietnam, and he was a test pilot for the Phantom jet and everything. And he loved to fly, and he had some buddies, and he had come to me and the chaplain earlier and said, "I want to give more money than any ship's ever given in the Navy to the United Way." And we said, "Well, Captain, we can't force people to give money. We have 500 guys in the ship. Aircraft guys got 5,000. How are we going to give more money?" He said, "Well, our guys are going to want to give it for free. Freely give. We're not going to make anybody give any money. It's all because they're going to want to do it." And he said, "Do you have any ideas how we can do that?" And we said, "No." He said, "Well, I got one." He said, "I've got a friend that's heading back at Christmas, and we've got a jump seat on this jet, and we're going to send somebody back home for Christmas. I'm going to give them 30 days basket leave and $500. And all they got to do is buy a $1 chance to be in the pool, and they can buy as many chances as they want, but somebody's going to go home." Well, guys are emptying their pocketbooks. Their paychecks, everything else to get on this thing. And so we get up on the flight deck, and the day we're going to announce all this stuff, well, the guys had built a big 55-gallon drum, and anybody remembers this, we were on the fantail, the captain, the chaplain, and I was cranking the handle to turn this big 55-gallon drum. It had a little hatch cut in it where you could lift up the screen and reach your hand in. And he said, "Chaplain, pull out a name." And so chaplain pulls out a name, and the chaplain says, "Praise God." And Captain Townsend said, "Don't tell me you pulled your own damn name." And he said, "No, sir." He handed a piece of paper to the captain. The captain took the microphone, read the name. He said, "Everybody stand by." And they called the yeoman, I can't remember his name right now, yeoman, come with him. And they went down to the brig, and the yeoman was in our berthing compartment. And he said the captain got down there and went into the brig and sat knee to knee because the name that was drawn was the guy who was in the brig.
The jumper.
And,
He was the jumper, right?
Yeah, the guy who jumped into the water and went to the brig was the guy who actually won the ticket to go home. Oh. And Captain Townsend, he said, Townsend called the yeoman and said, "Come with me." And they went down there, and he got into the jail and opened up the cell, and Townsend sat in the chair and got knee to knee with the guy. And the yeoman was, I think his name was Yancey. He said, Captain looked at him and said, "You got three things you can do." He said, "Your name was just drawn to get the free basket leave home for Christmas." He said, "But you got three choices." He said, "The first choice is you can take this and you can frame it and you can tell your grandkids and your children that you actually won something to go home, but you couldn't use it. And you can tell them the story about why you couldn't use it. The second thing is you can sell it, and whatever you can sell it for, I'll let you keep the money. The third thing you can do is you can use it to wipe your ass because you're not going home. And he said, I need your answer right now. And he said, I think I'll sell it. He said, good decision. Captain came back up and announced, he said, the gentleman who won it does not want to take advantage of it. So it's up for sale. And over the next, 2 or 3 hours, if you would like to put a bid in, one person, one bid, go up to the ship's office or somewhere and turn your name and how much money you want to pay for it. And the highest bid is going to be the one who goes home. And that was the end of that whole story. But interesting.
Captain Honor didn't do. There were none of those deals with Captain Honor back in the day. But I think we did all right with our donations to the. It was the combined federal campaign then, though. By the time us young guys got on the ship.
Right. We didn't have any deals like that, but we didn't have any jumpers either.
We did not have a single jumper. I will tell
We
you.
had such a loving ship. Nobody wanted to leave it.
Before you got on board, Captain, we had 4 young men that decided to go into the paint locker and sniff paint until they lost brain cells. So we sent.
Told you we had a happy ship.
We sent those guys home.
Yeah, we sent more than a few people home, but no jumpers.
No jumpers.
Was Captain Townsend captain in 1973 for the Med Cruise in 73? Do you know?
No, I got off in December of 72, and he left just before that to go to the Kitty Hawk.
It was
The
McCain.
Kitty Hawk, you might recall.
It was McCain, I believe, relieved him.
McCain.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Well, this is Ken Archer. Somebody among us on the call here also was on the ship in that period, I think. Benny maybe said he was. But there was a sailor that drowned on that cruise. Captain McCain had beer call out in the middle of the Atlantic. We would lower the boats, I think 50 footers, and put beer into them, and then or swim call is what it was called, and swim out from the ship to the small boats that had the beer and drink beer. Does anybody remember that?
Wasn't the kid's name Flores?
I can't remember his name. And I was up on deck watching the guys swimming and saw him drown.
We were anchored at the time, weren't we?
Yeah, I think we would anchor and then drop the boats.
In the Med somewhere.
Maybe it was in the Med. I thought it was in the Atlantic, but it could have been in the Med. It'd make more sense if it was in the Med. But it was just unbelievable that we were allowed 2 beers each. And I can remember guys out there in the small boats drinking the beer. And I guess the ship transported the beer from the States over maybe to, destinations in the Med, UFO clubs or something.
Well, it had the formaldehyde in it.
That was Schlitz beer.
The
worst crap you could drink.
But that was a real tragedy that he drowned, and it wasn't because he was drunk. He just, I think, couldn't swim, and they had, I think it was on the captain's gig in the water. They had corpsmen.
Travel within states and enforce it. That's right. That's the key. I think that is a lot when thinking about the states as countries. And you have that tool in Europe, and then you can really be very thoughtful about not letting people in from outside, but also inside of the country. Like this country, like France, or very decentralized like Spain or Germany, and all of them.
I'm looking for that.
And here in the United States, we're shy to do that. There's Hawaii and Alaska, and not only did it, but enforced it. The also about very, very little. We're talking about the tri-state doing that now. It's not enforced. It's recommended. And if you're coming from Florida, are you really going to wait for 2 weeks in your apartment before you can go out to New York?
Dan, I've encountered this before. This is intrusion from another source, and
No, it's not.
it's a Zoom problem, not ours.
I'm trying to find who's talking.
I don't think you're gonna find them because they're not gonna show up on ours.
George Robinson.
Hi, George.
Hey, how you doing?
Looking at, does that work? Can a country get a handle on
Hey,
it?
George, how are you doing?
Never better. Is that Tom Hoover?
Yes, it is.
I thought I recognized you.
There is still a country
It's only been about 40 years.
that requires the high blood.
Yeah, 45 years.
So you really need to think about it in terms of who is the most sovereign here, and that's the one making the decisions. If California,
I'm trying to get rid of this.
Hello, George.
Hey guys, how you doing?
and if they want to keep their, in the case of Vermont or New Hampshire, for example, keep the.
So, can you hear me, Dan?
I can hear you.
So a second ago, I did mute a couple of things, and
I
it
can hear you. I can hear you.
So that noise muted. George, when I muted you, the background noise went away. Is there somebody talking and your microphone picking it up?
It's under control.
No. I have the TV on in the background, but it's off now.
The microphone is so sensitive, it's picking up the conversation in the TV.
Sorry guys, what happened
That's
again?
Okay.
All right.
No, we thought somebody was trying to, we were doing top secret stuff here, so somebody wanted to get involved. We were thinking that the reason why I never had a swim call, Captain Honor, was that all these things happened during the 70s, and we just did steel beach parties, and we never left the ship. So we had our 2 beers, but we just stayed, on the flight deck and stayed safe and didn't go swimming.
I don't think we ever really had a good time in our schedule for a swim call.
No.
By the time things got to us, they were decomming most of the AORs and the AEs, and so anytime they wanted something, they said, hey, Seattle, put out to sea and go get it. And it was usually a rush to where we had to go and a rush to get back, to get bored, and rush again. So I don't know that we really had any leisure days to do swim call.
Yeah, but in the early days, we never had any jets damage the ship.
Ouch.
Oh.
The only time I wasn't in a rush, I was trying to get ready to refuel to bring on board about, 5 million gallons or something. And I took my time to catch up with the civilian tanker we were going to refuel from. And without knowing it, around 4 in the morning, we apparently tried to cross the bow of the USS Saratoga.
Oh.
And as we kind of came to and figured out that we were in the wrong place at the wrong time, we had to make some evasive action to avoid any problem. And everything was fine until 2 days later when the Saratoga came on board. Fortunately, it was Captain Trafton, not Captain Honor. So he doesn't have personal experience of this one, I think. And I thought the junior officer that I was going to end that day. But when you're not in a hurry, sometimes you make other mistakes. It's often better to be in a hurry. But that was 1990.
Does anybody remember when they sabotaged our ship in Norfolk? We were getting ready to go out to pick up a task force that was coming into Norfolk, and some guy had taken a pipe cutter and gone around one of the high-powered or high-pressure hydraulic lines. And when they executed all ahead 1/3, the pressure blew the pipe out.
What year was that?
I'm thinking it was 71, but I can't really place it.
Is that when they were meeting a task force come back from Vietnam and we're offloading them?
I don't know that they were coming back from Vietnam. They were coming back from somewhere. And I'm pretty sure it was Townsend was the captain, because he was always volunteering to go help anybody that needed to offload fuel or ammunition, and we'd take it up to Craney Island. And so I think it was 71. And
Okay. Captain Keener was he captain until 1970? This
yeah.
seems, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that Captain Townsend was the captain at this time.
I can't remember going. I'm not sure. You remember they were coming back from Vietnam or somewhere, but we had to go offload an aircraft carrier, maybe.
We were always going out to pick up ammunition or fuel, so that the ships could come into Norfolk.
Right.
And then we would take it wherever it had to go to offload it. And what had happened is they pulled us out of the pier and got us going down the channel, and then they say tugs away or whatever the command is, and then as soon as they get so many feet away, they say all ahead 1/3, and when that happened, we just lost control, and it was a kind of a windy day, and the ship started listing over going off to one side, and they got all the tugs on one side, and they're bumping us, and they took us out to an anchorage. And about the time we got out to the anchorage, these helicopters started landing on the ship, and it was CIA, FBI, and whoever. And they started doing musters of everybody on the ship. And lo and behold, there was one guy that was missing. His name was Roger Dilks. Nobody remember this?
No.
We were out at Anchorage for one day without anybody being able to go off the ship.
Don't remember that. 71?
I think it was 71. It was before the second cruise, I believe.
Yeah, I got off just before the Caribbean cruise in August of 71. I got discharged. I got special permission or something to get off about 3 or 4 weeks early, or else I'd have been on that Caribbean cruise. But I was headed to northern Michigan.
Well, we had one guy that was he was like a 6-year third class. He'd been busted once from second class, and he had married a girl from his town in Tennessee or Kentucky, and she was like 17 and he's 23 or something like that. And she said, I'm going home. I can't take this. And so the day we departed, or we're going to depart, he goes down on the pier to drop off his laundry, supposedly, and he took off for the bus station. And so when they did the mustering, all that, one guy on the whole ship shows up missing. His name was Roger Dilks, and he was in our division. And so as soon as they determined that he was the likely candidate for this, they came in and took over one of our offices, the ECM room, Captain, if you remember that, up there in CIC, and they started interrogating us, like 3 guys in there, and they're all talking, throwing questions to ask you. Was he a member of this group? Was he a Soviet spy? Was he all this? He's having marital problems. And they, he came back to get his stuff, and he said he was on this bus heading back home, and they pulled into this little rinky-dink town, and these 2 guys get on and slowly walk down the bus to get to the back. And then he said, the next thing I remember is the left side of my face being pushed down on the floor mat of the bus. They handcuffed him, took him off the bus, carried him face down off the bus, and took him to someplace and interrogated him. And after a couple of days, determined that he was just the wrong guy at the wrong time. And they had found the fingerprints of the guy in after steering that had actually cut the hose or the pipe. And yeah. And you know, the funny thing is, I've got a bunch of guys, friends that were in the Navy and in the Army. I mean, the Air Force and Army. They don't have no stories. Their big stories were, oh, we got 3 days leave in some town. Nobody but the Navy has the good stories. You know? I don't know.
Yeah.
After steering wasn't a fun watch, knowing if they ever lost power, it's up to you to make it good.
Yeah.
You just look out the porthole, right?
There was no porthole.
Just testing you. You know,
Some of my best watches on after steering.
Me too. On seeing anchor detail, just
Yeah, I loved it.
stay alert, right?
Now, we had a little tin can at the top, and if you open the hatch, the can would fall down and wake you up.
Oh, Benny's gone inside.
Yeah, it's getting dark outside, so I didn't figure you could see me.
So have we gotten a story from your time?
Well, my time was I was there on the ship when that guy drowned, and I was wondering where we were. We were down in the Caribbean, and it had been really, really hot down there. Everybody was begging to have swim call. And so that's where we were. And finally, the captain finally just gave in to us and had swim call. And of course, that's when, you know, the guy drowned. I just got it out. They had the Liberty boat out there about maybe 30 yards away from the ship, and you'd have to swim out to it. And then they had beer. And I remember I just gotten out there, got on the Liberty boat, cracked a beer, and they were calling us all to come back in. So the guy drowned. He never made it to the Liberty boat. I don't know if he just couldn't swim or what. But I remember it well.
I don't think the Schlitz was worth that bad swim that day. That's a shame.
Oh yeah, it was a shame. I'm sure the captain caught hell for that. You know, I don't know whether we were actually allowed to stop and have swim call.
You know, when it's your time, we had a petty officer trying to date a young lady that was serving on the Puget Sound. And so he went to pick her up over at the pier in Norfolk. And she said she needed help learning how to drive. And she drove him right off the pier. And he didn't make it. So when it's your day, it's a first-class petty officer. He's in the passenger seat. And she drove straight off the pier into 45 feet of water. You never know what's going to happen. But again, these are young stories. You guys got to go back to when I was young. You know, all my combat pay was Desert Storm, Desert Shield. This doesn't count. You guys, you know, the Vietnam era was different.
Well, we were supposedly originally going to head to the Vietnam, but for some reason, I don't know whether it was a turn down or whatever, they decided to send us over to the East Coast.
Weren't we in the Med when they were talking about that?
I'm sure you were so upset about that.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, damn.
It was before we were finished. They had originally the ship was going to go to Vietnam, and I was going to A school for. I signed up for the submarine service, if you can believe that. It was the only opportunity to go in the Navy, and when they shifted us from the first class, which was ended at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they put me on the second shift after so many weeks, and our lunch time coincided with happy hour at the NCO club, and that was my downfall. For I think for $1 you can get 2 Old Milwaukees and a plate of French fries, and it was the big Old Milwaukees. Remember the Old Milwaukee?
Yeah.
And so I failed, and the chief that was giving me my orders said, well, I'm taking care of your ass. I'm sending you to a ship that's going to go to Vietnam. And then we all mustered in San Diego, and by the time we got up to Bremerton, they had changed the destination to Norfolk.
In '72 in our Med cruise, I think they were talking about sending us to Vietnam from the Med.
They might have, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember that. That's good. I do not remember. I was on 69 through 71. Don't remember that. Of course, I was stuck in the post office. Didn't hear anything.
You weren't reading people's mail.
I don't remember that either. This is the first. Tonight's the first time I've even heard any conversation about that ship originally going to Vietnam.
Yeah, me too.
I had never heard that story.
Yeah, never did.
No.
We were going to replace the Sacramento or the Camden,
Huh.
and the Detroit was going to come over and replace the other one. And they were originally, the thought was that they were going to go to Norfolk.
Interesting.
Who knows why?
I remember
I'm sure
going
the
through
Detroit-
the Panama Canal. And
Yeah.
we'd have been a couple feet bigger, we wouldn't have fit through that.
Right.
Yeah.
It was pretty tight,
It was tight.
very tight.
I just remember the memories I have are being a young kid from a small town in northern Michigan, one stoplight in the whole county, and that's where I live now. Still one stoplight. But going from high school to, Barcelona, Spain, and Naples, Italy, and Monte Carlo, Monaco, and in the casino over there, we were there. Athens, Greece, and I was overwhelmed. And just a new world for me. But I made a lot of friends. George Robinson's one of them. He's on tonight. Mike Richard, great friend. And some names you guys might have wrote them down. Wayne King from Deck Division. Jim Brantley. Bruce Mays. Bruce lives in northern Michigan. And everybody remembers Jimmy Pease, the chaplain's assistant. Is he on tonight?
What's his name? What's his name again?
Jimmy
P. P-E-A-N.
Yeah. Everybody knows Jimmy.
He's one of our Texas boys down here over in San Antonio.
I thought he might be on tonight.
We partied hard in San Antonio with him.
Yeah.
He caused a bit of trouble.
He did.
Yeah.
But we love him.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
He was even trouble in Jacksonville, I have to say. He didn't just keep the trouble in San Antonio. He brought it all the way to Jacksonville.
True that.
Yeah. And if Mike Richard is still on, you'll probably remember Pete Mims. He was quite a character. And Chester Clark worked with me at the post office.
Yeah.
And some of those guys, I thought I'd throw out some of those names. But we had a good time, and I was very blessed to have served on the Seattle in those years, and it really grew me up. So
It was a good ship.
it was a good ship.
It was. There was a sailor that had a story about the laundry room, where he kind of.
That was Carlos.
That was a story.
That was a story. He actually took my place, I think, when I got off the ship. He came into the laundry and was one of the guys that replaced my position when I got off the ship in early December of 70. I think he came on board about that time. That was so funny about getting in the big tub, the big laundry tub.
But even getting the duty down there, he had cheated on the documentation to get there, and then But I hope he comes back to the next reunion.
Yeah, he's a hoot.
It was a hoot.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to him.
Why would he want to go to the laundry room?
There was something about where he was going to go otherwise. So he thought it might be better, but the laundry room didn't seem to be like the best duty station on the ship.
Isn't he the guy that wanted to turn it into a bathtub?
That's the whole thing. And
yeah, he put water in it, and then the ship started rolling and rocking, and he's rolling around down there in this. That was so funny.
I did come across the day I met Captain Honor. If I share this, I was command duty officer the day Captain Honor came on board. He didn't know who I was that day.
You were officer of the deck?
I was, yeah. So there was a whole speech and stuff that Captain Honor, and there was an admiral talking, I think, that day, friend of yours. And then we had a few months together before I left the ship. But it was our fun in Earl, New Jersey.
So are you talking about when I came aboard or the change?
Yeah, this is the change of command.
Okay.
That's what that day was. Is that not the day you came aboard?
No, I came aboard a couple weeks earlier.
Oh, I wouldn't have worn that
Engineered
every
it,
day.
so I highlined the board from an AOR.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Because I wanted to see how it worked. And I was trusting in people that they know there'd be great retribution if they dipped me in the ocean first.
I am pretty sure Bosun knew that he shouldn't dip you. He might tease you by leaving you hanging, but he wouldn't dip. Bosun Bernardo, the bosun during that tour, has come to a couple of the reunions lately. So it's been good to see him as well.
He lives here in Jacksonville, and I've seen him a couple of times. We've gone out to dinner with his wives. There's another bosun that followed him by the name of Gary Haygood. And I worked with him here in the shipyard after I got out of the Navy. He was the chief rigger for the shipyard.
I'm trying to remember one of the boats made first class that was on back in the probably 69, 70 on the Med cruises. His last name was Gray. Anybody remember that?
I remember.
I
that.
do. I do.
Oh, yeah.
He was mean. I thought he was, at that time I was pretty young, and to me, he was a mean guy. I didn't want to cross him, you know.
No, you didn't. No,
well, no, I didn't. I don't remember his first name.
I don't think any bosun, when they're on the ship, they don't want to be perceived as lovable, kind people.
No, this guy seemed rugged, tough, and everything. I thought, no, I don't want to mess with that guy.
I can't remember his first name.
I'll tell you.
We called him I remember Hayes Gray is what Hayes Gray, but that wasn't Hayes. His name was something else. I forget.
I'll tell you a funny story about him.
Okay.
He was the one of our first senior bosuns, and he was in charge of accepting various parts of the ship. As the yard workers finished something, then he would go around and verify it, that it was properly built and acceptable, and then he would sign off on it, and then somebody else would officially sign off for it. And in the very early days, we weren't living on the ship, but we were going to the ship every morning. We were living in an off-ship barracks there in Bremerton.
Right.
And in those days, I was known to tip a few bottles of wine and other things and come in at about, say, 3 o'clock in the morning, and then try to find some place to go and hide until I could wake up and be sober again. I didn't do it every day. I was only like once or twice a year that I did that. And so this one morning I come in, and there was a air handling area up on the O3 deck that a lot of guys would go in there. And that morning it was full of people. So I went back down to our berthing compartment, which was the small one in the very front of the ship. And they had just built the peacoat lockers up in the front, the big aluminum things that we hung our peacoats in. And so I crawled inside of one of those on the bottom, and I'm sleeping. I'm kind of like crunched up a little bit. And then I hear these people walking through the compartment, and you can hear stuff opening and closing. And I go, oh shit. So they walk over to the peacoat locker, and there was a top double doors and a bottom double doors. They opened the bottom of the top double doors, and they grabbed the hooks up there and checking it. And he's saying, yeah, that looks pretty good. Everything is all right. Close the doors. And I go, oh my God, I made it. Bam, they open the bottom doors. And he go, I won't even begin to tell you what he said. You know, being a bosun, you know what he was talking.
Yeah.
And so he said, I'm putting you on report. And he, I think Huber was the XO.
Huber,
yeah.
And so he wrote it up, and of course he was up in our compartment, our work area up in CIC. And so I'm going up there one day, and he goes, what is this about you sleeping in a peacoat locker? And I said, yes, sir, I was. And he said, oh my God. He says, I can't even begin to take this to the captain. There's too many important things going on. And he kind of chews me out, and he says, you better be damn lucky that we're putting the ship together. We don't have time for this crap. And Gray was so pissed that I didn't get in trouble for that.
Oh.
He was furious. He was always trying to get me for something after that.
Yeah.
But he was kind of a nice guy, but he was a bit of a jerk when he wanted to be.
Hey guys, I took a lot of pictures on the ship, and here's one of the guy you're talking about. Can you see that?
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way I remember him. I don't remember that goatee, but I remember him.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
George, that was good.
I took a whole lot of. As a matter of fact, I was in the house for about 3 months. I was afraid to go out, and I went through my photos. I have about 3 totes of photographs, and about 50 or 60 pictures I took on the ship. Just portraits of guys, and I have some pictures from not too many, but from our days in San Diego, the barracks. Everybody I knew I took a picture, I thought. So anyway, I dug this one up.
That's good artwork.
Well, I don't know about that. What happened? I was a duty driver, and one day I was driving Captain Keener someplace, I don't know where. We were talking, just shooting the breeze, and I told him that we should have a photo lab on deck because I was taking pictures, and I told him that I'd love to have a enlarger. He said, "Sure, do it." So I told the chaplain, and he asked me to repeat, Chaplain Hinder, I think his name was, and he asked me to repeat every word that the captain said. I was verbatim. So I did, and next thing you know, he told me to go downtown and pick up an enlarger. And he gave me, I forgot what deck it was, but he gave me a little room for dark room. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. George Hinderer, I think. Sound right?
Yeah, I think it was. He was a commander, lieutenant commander.
Jimmy Cheese was his assistant.
Yeah, Jim was pretty good. Yeah.
Next time we do get together, hopefully you can pass around some of those, some of the work product. Normally we're at round tables and you can actually, show off some of the history there.
Well, I had to go and dig into the archives, but I found a few. I got a great story to tell you. Was Commander Huber left the ship, and we had somebody else come on, another XO. Well, when I was discharged, I think we're in Barcelona, and I went to Rota, Spain for separation, and from there they sent me back to Philadelphia. Well, guess who was the XO at Philadelphia? So we had a reunion. So in '71, I decided to go to Temple, and I needed a recommendation. So I moseyed over to Captain Huber, Commander Huber, and asked him to write me a recommendation for school. Well, he wrote one, but it wasn't as flattering as I thought it should have been. So it got me in, but it wasn't flattering. He was pretty straight, pretty cut and dry, I was hoping he would exaggerate a little teeny bit, but he didn't.
Good memories. Yep.
That's a true story.
Hey guys, can you all hear me?
Yes. Hey, Ken.
Hello there. Hey, Vic and Bill.
Hey.
Who's that?
Hey, Ken. How are you doing? Where'd you get that hat?
Oh, I don't know. I must have stolen it. It's the original.
True.
You can tell by the no curve.
Yeah. Still got salt in it, but But anyway, I'm a little late. Did I miss anything in the first hour?
Everything.
Oh, well, bye.
We'll go back and watch it later.
Oh, can you do that?
We are taping tonight.
Oh, good. I didn't. I remember. What we were talking about. Keener and Dobbin Spec.
Yep.
And then what's his face? Of course, I talk about this all the time. Then when I come to talk to you guys, the captain that came after Keener.
Oh, that's Townsend.
Yeah, Marlon Wesley Townsend III.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were the. I mean, as I was on with Bill and Vic, I was on from 60. Let's see, when was it? March of 70. March of 70 till July of 73. But so I made the first and second med cruise, and a trip to Gitmo and Azores and stuff like that. I was a signalman for those of you who don't know
You
me.
joined us in Norfolk, right? Norfolk?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Pier 3, and was also at the DCOM, and it was a fantastic time. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Wouldn't trade it for anything.
Hey, Ken, were you on board when we were in, I think it was Athens, Greece, and somebody spotted that what they thought was a mine floating in the...
That was me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
remember that.
You
Yep.
tell
What
the
was
story.
it? What was it?
Okay, I'm up on the signal bridge, and we're anchored off of Athens, and always looking through the big eyes and the binoculars, and there's this black thing bobbing up and down in the water, and because of the way the tide was going, it was sort of like bobbing up and down. And I think we were in there with NATO ships, so there was a lot of ships that
Well,
were
we
in
had the Kennedy was in there. There was an
Yeah.
entire task force.
Yeah,
10
and
ships with us, and then the NATO ships.
yeah,
We were,
and this,
the thing was full of ships.
the thingy is bobbing up and down, and I'm looking at it, and I'm going, it looks so weird, and it's black, and it's round, and it's bobbing up and down, and I called the XO, or I called the OOD. That's what I called. I called the officer of the deck, and I said, there's something going on out there. And he came up, and he took one look at it, and the next thing I know, all the ships are at general quarters, and our EOD team was heading out on a boat to go check it out, and it was a World War II submarine mine that had broken loose from its chain or whatever that was holding it where it was, and it was still alive and armed.
Wow.
And the EOD guys tied it up and towed it out to the way out from the harbor and disposed of it.
What I remember about that was standing up on the signal deck with you, and all you could hear were general quarter alarm sounds echoing through that entire harbor.
Oh yeah, all those ships.
And helicopters going back and forth, the captain's gigs going back to the beach, and it was just it was like a movie picture.
Yeah,
all
Tuck Labrie was on the EOD team then, and I'm surprised. I thought maybe he might show up here tonight because I know he's on Facebook.
I had forgotten about that. I do remember that. I had forgotten about that.
I'd forgotten about it too, but I do remember it.
Sure, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'd forgotten completely about that.
If you were in Athens, you could not have not heard those general quarters alarms going off.
Yeah, we were in Athens. I was in Athens. I was in
Athens
about that.
I just had forgotten about it.
I don't know if they canceled Liberty because of that, but I know all of the senior officers were coming back to the ship any way they could get to them.
Yeah, because if we had to get underway in a hurry,
yeah,
everybody would have, half the ship would have been over in Athens and the other half would have been taken off.
Yeah. You know who the other person that was involved in that was? Kyle Stafford. He was up there. We were on duty together.
Mm-hmm.
We had the anchor watch.
Definitely. And does anybody, I know, well, Vic and Bill probably remember Taranto, Italy. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
When the entire Navy was banned from coming to Taranto, Italy.
Yeah.
10 years.
Well, the same thing happened in Mykonos, remember? We stole the flags in Mykonos as idiots.
Oh, that I didn't remember, but I remember Taranto because it was a Sunday morning, and we were walking around in the main shopping area, and a couple of Marines from a certain carrier saw some stuff they liked in a store, and just because it was Sunday didn't mean they couldn't have them. So they picked up a wrought iron park bench and threw it through the front window of the store.
Oh my God.
And they helped themselves to, I think there were shoes and some other things they helped themselves to. And all of the people that were the people that lived there, that I mean, they did this right in front of people that lived in Toronto. And the next thing you know, those people that were heading to church or coming back from church or whatever on Sunday morning, they literally rioted and started chasing everybody. We were in uniform, and they started chasing anybody in uniform back down towards Fleet Landing, throwing bottles at us, throwing rocks at us, throwing all kinds of things at us. And the problem, of course, was that when we got to Fleet Landing, our boats weren't there to pick us up because they didn't expect to be there. You know, we had just been dropped off. So they had gone back to the ship. And we had to, I guess the shore patrol or somebody radioed them and said, get back over here. And meanwhile, we're down below this hill waiting for the boats, and the people are above us throwing rocks and bottles and all this other stuff. And even though it wasn't our, you know, nobody from our ship that did it, but as it turned out, once they got it all straightened out and everything, the government of Italy banned the Navy from coming to Taranto for 10 years. It was written up in the, I know it was written up in one of the publications because I remember reading the actual story afterwards. But you know, nothing like ruining liberty in for everybody for the next 10 years.
I think that's the reason why we only got to Sigonella.
Yeah, it could be.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, just for a pair of shoes or something. But yeah, it was quite a mess. There's nothing like being chased out of town by a bunch of very angry people.
Probably a little alcohol involved there.
You think? Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking.
Blame it on the Schlitz, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Those were the days.
True.
Oh.
I think I served on board during a sea anchor that brought us up to Bremerhaven with Captain Honor. Right, Craig?
Absolutely.
And what an amazing sea and anchor detail and an amazing Liberty port. But sailors that had never seen a red light district before. As trying to be shore patrol that week was not a lot of fun.
You know, was it worse than Port-au-Prince, Haiti?
Say again?
Was it worse than Port-au-Prince, Haiti?
That's all news to me. Go ahead with that one.
Well, we went there before or after Gitmo, and that was quite an experience.
Yeah,
it was.
That place sucked.
Yeah, that was really bad. Port-au-Prince.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gotten any better.
Went to Gitmo also. That's the first time I ever played golf. I played golf there. Believe that.
Did you play golf at Gitmo?
I played golf in Gitmo.
Oh,
you guys know the story of what happened in Gitmo with Captain Townsend?
Yeah.
No?
I don't remember
that. Captain Townsend, I loved the guy. The only thing I didn't love doing was waking him up in the middle of the night to give him messages, because that was never a thrill. I never liked to do that. But Captain Townsend, as many know, was, aside from being a fantastic guy, he wasn't that strict as far as haircuts, sideburns, things like that. And so when we landed in Gitmo, some of the guys went over for Liberty, and I got a message from the base admiral saying, I would like to see your captain now. And so I got a hold of Captain Townsend and I gave him the message, and he went over and had a little chat with the admiral, who basically told him that everybody that comes on that base better have a regulation haircut and everything else. So the captain gets on the 1MC after he comes back from his little visit, and he said, here's the story, guys. If you want to go over, You must get a haircut and shave and do all the things that, you know, are regulation. If you don't, we will open the mess decks 24/7 and show movies 24/7. Needless to say, nobody went over.
Well, that's not totally true.
Well, I shouldn't say nobody.
Because that was the first time that I got shore patrol duty. And so they take us in the trucks and drop us off at places. And just a few minutes, I mean, we weren't there very long. I don't remember what the time frame was, but another truck comes along from the base and takes us to some base headquarters. And that's where we waited until Townsend came and got us and took us back, or he didn't take us, but took us back to the ship. We were not allowed. We had, remember the headbands that he had made up?
Mm-hmm.
USS Seattle headbands that we could wear on the ship instead of a hat. Yeah. That was my one time on shore patrol that I was on and off within an hour or two. Unbelievable.
I will also add, and I also know Bill and Vic know and remember John Volk, my best buddy on the ship.
Yeah. The police.
Yeah, John and I were over in Monaco. We went to see the Grand Prix. We happened to be there that weekend, and we were walking down a street, and we walked up to an intersection, and this car pulls up, and the back window goes down, and it's Princess Margaret. And she waves, and she says, "Hello, hi guys, how are you?" And John and I look at each other like somebody's pulling our leg here. And she gets out of the car and waves and says hello, and you couldn't miss the fact that that's who it was. And then she said, "Have a good day, guys." And she got back in the car and left. So it was like,
yeah,
unbelievable. I mean, what am I saying? Princess Grace. It was Grace Kelly. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. But anyway, those are my big stories. Other than the fantastic time I had, and we won't discuss Waldo. Bill and Vic probably remember Waldo. Waldo was the leading LPO signalman when I got aboard.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And Waldo had some issues. Waldo, I would only say the issue that I found was that Waldo never graduated from elementary school. So he didn't have a lot of people skills, and he didn't have a lot of patience, but he did know his rate. There's absolutely no doubt that he knew what a signalman was. But when we went down to Gitmo, and we were down in the Caribbean, he wanted us to paint the deck. And the deck was so hot that right through the boondockers, you could feel the heat from the deck. And he said, "I don't care how hot it is, paint the deck." So we're down there, we go down to the paint locker, get the paint, come back up, and we're painting, and the paint is literally sizzling like water does in a frying pan, and it's bouncing on the deck. And we pointed out to him, he says, "Just keep painting." And then I don't remember which ops officer came up on the signal bridge just to say hello or whatever, and he saw what we were doing, and he said, "What are you doing?" And Waldo told us to paint. And he goes over and talks to Waldo. The next thing you know, paint's back down in the locker, and we're done. But Waldo, unfortunately, we had 7 o'clock muster on one morning in Norfolk, and there was no Waldo. And it turned out that the night before, Waldo had been out drinking and got behind the wheel of his car, completely stoned, and killed 4 people in a head-on collision. He killed a family of 4, a mom, a dad, and their 2 kids. And we never saw Waldo again. But fun times in the Navy.
Yeah.
Fun times in the Navy.
For the most part, they were all fun.
Was that
really
in Norfolk? Ken, was that in Norfolk?
Sure was. Yep, he was on Military Highway when he crashed. Yep.
Oh, man. We had a first-class petty officer boiler technician who, a couple years after I left, he got out of the Navy, and he was prosecuted for murder in Norfolk. But I'm pretty sure there's a secondary story to him, but I don't have all the facts from Virginia. So, but that's a horrible, horrible end.
Yep.
There's two real quick. I hate to hog the time from anybody else who wants to talk. Two quick small world stories. One was when we were in Athens, and I don't remember how many guys were with us, and we were in uniform, and we were at the Hilton Hotel. It was our first trip into Athens, and we didn't know anything about where to eat or what to do. And so we figured, well, you get a good meal at a Hilton Hotel. So we're in the restaurant, and we're having lunch, and we asked for our check, and the waiter says it's already been paid. And that was a little shock. And he pointed over to another table. He said, that man over there paid for it. And this man comes over, and he says, hi, guys. And he's speaking perfect English. And he said, where are y'all from? And so we tell him, and I said, I'm from Shaker Heights, Ohio. And he says, I'm from Shaker Heights, Ohio. And I said, you're kidding. He says, no, what street do you live on? And I told him, and I said, what street do you live on? It was 4 streets away.
Oh.
I mean, come on. 5,000 miles from home, and a guy that lives 4 streets from you buys your lunch.
Shit.
But the best one was, and I know that Bill and Vic might remember Bill Sawyer, who was an ops officer. And Bill Sawyer came on board and went through the same thing at a morning muster. Where are you from? And he says, Shaker Heights, Ohio. And I said, I'm from Shaker Heights, Ohio. And it turned out that we lived 1 street away. Our addresses were the same, except on 2 different streets, which means that's how close we were. And I said, how come I don't know you? Because he started telling me all of his neighbors, and I knew them all. I said, why don't I know you? And he said, I went to private schools. Otherwise, I would have known him, for years before we got into the Navy. But I saw him, I kept in touch with him after I got out. And the last time I saw him, he came back here to Cleveland when his mom passed away. And I went out to lunch with him, and we spent most of the day reminiscing. But I've lost him. I haven't been able to find him since, so I have no idea where he went.
Check Facebook.
I did. He's not there.
He's not there.
The place where I look first for anybody.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think I told Bill and Vic this maybe in an email. I met, now that he's not, the Secretary of the Navy a month or 2 ago. He resigned after that whole thing with the captain on the carrier that got canned. But when he was here in town, I met him. He asked me if I would be interested. There's going to be a brand new USS Cleveland, and it's going to be one of those literal LCS ships. I think the hull number is going to be 39. So it's going to be the USS Cleveland, LCS 39. And he asked if I would be interested in taking part in the commissioning. And I thought he was joking, but he said, I will hook you up with the people that you need to be hooked up with. And the next thing I know, I got this email with all these, that he had sent to them, adding me to the list. And then I got to take a tour of the USS Indianapolis, which is an LCS that came to Cleveland and parked next to Brown Stadium. And I went to see this ship, and it was the first Navy ship I'd seen since I got out. And believe me, you would not know that this was a Navy ship compared to what we know about Navy ships. There was a regular gas tank trucker, a gas truck sitting on the pier. They had Bravo up for taking on fuel. And I said to the guy on the deck, I said, you're using regular gasoline? He says, yeah, that's what we use. I said, so what happens if you're out in the middle of the Atlantic or you're wherever I don't know of any ship that's going to come out and refuel you with regular, unleaded. And he said, well, he says, we carry regular gas. We have two different tanks. One carries regular gas and one carries diesel. But he said that the LCSs are being designed to be Great Lakes ships. And he said the Cleveland will be home ported in Cleveland, which I was totally shocked. He said, so they really are never far away from a city that they can pull into and get gas.
Oh.
So I'm waiting to hear what the actual plan is for the commissioning. It's supposed to be in 2022. So there's about a year or two to go yet, but it's under construction, I think, in Indianapolis right now. So, I mean, you go to the bridge and they have a joystick, and that was the helm. And they have a computer. All they have is computers. There's no people. And it was like CIC is one person and a computer. And they have one quartermaster and no signalman because that rate's been discontinued. And I said to him, I see you have a signal light. I said, who signals if you have no signalman? He says, well, the quartermaster does. And I said, okay, what if the quartermaster is busy being a quartermaster? Do you have a backup? He said, no. Okay, it's your Navy, it's not mine. But I mean, the ladders were so steep that it was interesting to walk down and up these ladders. And I was taking this tour, and there was two guys on there that had been in the same time that you and I were, and talking about the ships we were on compared to this thing, and we were just in awe because their flight deck, you couldn't land one of our helicopters on that flight deck. And I said, well, what are you landing over here? Drones? I said, this thing isn't big enough for a helicopter. But it should be interesting how they actually do something with these ships. Wow. Okay, I'll shut up now. Go ahead, somebody else.
Dave, are you back? David, I think he's on mute. I know he wanted to talk about the organization a little bit.
Dave, is that Dave Holton?
Yes.
Oh, definitely. I was hoping he'd be here.
I think his phone number's at the bottom here, but he's had technical difficulties throughout the day.
Oh.
Vic, you haven't gotten any texts, have you? I don't see any. Wait, I got one text. I think you muted me. Let me see. I'll
Thank you very much, Dan. Thank you very much, Dan.
So David is. I am on his list right now.
No, you did well. I've been trying to get that message to you because you muted me when you were trying to get all that background noise. You pushed it. So I've been muted the whole time, but I've enjoyed listening.
That allowed others to get a word in for you there, David. But Ken carried
exactly
the
right.
load for us.
Yeah, Ken Rothman, it's good to hear your voice, buddy.
Hey, same to you.
And I wanted to mention something. The fellow who was talking about Chester Clark and everything in the mailroom. Chester lives in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where my mother, who recently passed away, but my mother was alive. I went to her church, and Chester goes to her church, so I had a chance to connect with him, which is kind of interesting. Because I remember him, he was served in the mailroom when I was there. So, yeah, he was like 3 pews up from where my mother sat. So I believe I know that guy. But yeah, let me just wrap this up because we're cognizant of time, and this has really been great. It's been great to hear a bunch of new stories, and I've been to a lot of reunions and I've heard of a lot of stories, but a lot of new stuff tonight, and we're glad to have some new names and folks join us. And just want to give you a shout out to a couple things. I'm going to let Vic, if he's still there, mention something about the ship store, but we really like for you to go online, and if you haven't done it recently, go online to the website, and there's some information Vic's going to be sending out soon. Go in there and update your profile. if you haven't done that lately. And then and that helps us keep up with you and allows us to communicate, to do things like this. And also, we encourage you to consider joining the organization. It's $30 a year. You know, we're going to try to do some more things like this to get people engaged, but we got a good group of guys who have been supporting it over the years, but we'd sure like to have some more. And as we go through these, getting into the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, you know, we're hoping to get some of the younger guys who can come in and step in and fill our shoes, like Dan, and even get some guys younger than Dan and Captain Hunter to join up with the group too. So if you know people that you communicate with and you had a good time tonight, email them, say, hey, this is really cool. Watch the emails. We're going to do this again for the 80s coming up here in another month. You're welcome to listen in. You know, log in, listen in, and we'll let those guys do their stories, and you can chime in like we're doing tonight as well, and just kind of keep this thing growing and just get some energy going around our ship and everything. But consider updating your profile online and consider joining. It's easy to do. And Vic, if you're still with us, could you mention a few things about the ship store?
Sure. I have got a brand new ship store that you could go and look at on the website now. Please do that and look at all the items that are for sale there. I think you'll be quite surprised at how nice everything is. We're going to be adding some new things on it in the next day or two, and so I will send an email on that.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of things in there. You can buy your license plate stuff, the display, license plate, things that go around your license plate. It says Seattle, lots of jackets, shirts, things like that to show your pride in Seattle. And the one thing we are trying to do, and that is we're trying to get every state to have somebody at the board of Seattle to get a vanity plate with AOE-3 or something like that. And so I encourage you to go down to your license plate bureau. I recently did it. It was really easy. Went down and said, hey, is this taken? And I neither the AOE-3 or AOE-3, neither one had been taken. So I picked one of those and put it on a license plate. And I don't know, it was $30, $40, whatever it was. But we're taking pictures of that, and we got on our website, we've got, Vic, what do we have, maybe 10 or 15, 20 right now? Folks have done their license plate?
I was just asking Dan to put that up, and you can see them. I think there's only about...
What page would that one be on?
It should be right there on the left-hand side under license plates.
The plate itself I just passed, right? Let's see here. I saw the plate, but
anyway, yeah. But anyway, if you like to do that, just go to your license plate bureau, ask them what's there, and a lot of states have different kinds of vanity plates. I put mine on a U.S. Navy veteran license plate, but you can put on any of these kinds of things, and they'll secure that. If you do, take a picture of it and send it in to us, one of the officers, and we'll get it posted on the website and have your state included in this thing too. So just some things like that to show Seattle pride. And Vic, Bill, if you would just take a second and talk about the museum that we have and what's going to be happening next year on that.
I don't know where Bill went. I think he's gone now, but Bill worked very hard. Yep, I'm here.
Go ahead and talk about it.
Yes, Bill Norris went and hooked up with me with there they are. There's quite a few plates. I guess there's 4, 9, 10, 11. Bill Norris hooked up with the museum that's in Bremerton, Washington. And we got an area, not a full room yet, but we have an area that is going to be for our memorabilia. and we have sent between 50 and 60 items into them, and they were putting up a display, and we were going to have a dedication at it at this upcoming reunion, which was postponed. So we're going to do it next year, and we hope that there'll be a very strong attendance at that reunion.
Yeah, and we had some interesting things. We contacted the heirs to Chief Seattle, and there's 2 tribes that have heirs in them, and they were planning on coming to be a part of the ceremony. So we had a really big ceremony planned and ribbon cutting and everything. So we'll do all that next year. But stay in tune with the website. You'll get information about that as well. And so with that, we just want to thank you for your time. And like I said, keep watching the website and share with your friends that you have contacts with what we're doing. Encourage them to go on the website, try to get some memorabilia to wear around or put in your car, or have a jacket or a hat or something like that, and show Seattle pride as you're out and about. You'll be surprised. I tell you, if you start doing it, you're going to be surprised at people who come up to you and say, hey, I was on the Detroit, or I was on the Seattle. I've had every place I go, if I wear my shirt or my hat, inevitably somebody's going to say something. I had a girl walk up one time, much younger than me, and she said, my dad was on that ship. And it wasn't on when I was there, but that's the ship my dad was on. So you'll be surprised if you get out there and just wear it a little bit, what you'll see. So again, we encourage you to be a part of it. Officers or board, anybody else have a closing comment?
I thank everybody for putting up with us and getting through the technical issues, and grateful for the input. So thank you.
And be safe.
Thank you, Sam.
If anybody talks to Bobby Miller, tell him I said hi.
I sent him a text a little bit ago and asked him to get on. He's on Facebook right now, but he didn't get on. I'm sorry for that. I'll chew on him later this week.
Yeah, he's got some stories. All right, guys. Well, everyone have a great evening and watch